following podcast includes explicit content. Listener discretion is advised.
I must address you, the listener. You're the person who chose to listen to this garbage. You've begun listening under the assumption that this was only a simple little baseball podcast. Little did you know you've now entered the HOTO zone.
Welcome to Heart of the Order. We are in the midst of a outrageous off season. We've had a few moves. I don't know if we have to really dig into them and get too deep, but the Cardinals sign Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. Obviously, number 1 and 2 on all of our shopping list. I think there's been enough breakdown and enough analyzation of these signings by other people, other radio shows, other podcasts. I don't know if we need to really get into that. But in a vacuum, what do you think Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn can bring to the Cardinals? I kind of want to put a positive spin on this. Mac, I'll let you start.
No, Lord, here we go.
Simply, I'm going to keep it short because I'll let Richie kind of take it, but innings. That's what it is, man. It's innings. You had depleted a lot of innings from your organization going back to July, dealing Montgomery and Flaherty from your rotation, and then you choose to non-tender Jake Woodford and Dakota Hudson. You're losing a lot of innings, man, and just signing 2 guys that you're not spending the most money in the world, it doesn't really hinder you from any other moves, in my opinion. So it's just a innings-eating move.
Richie, you're my go-to for the positivity train here. What you haven't been, you've been really negative. Give me some positivity for these 2 signings. I need it.
Okay, I think Mac hit it on the. I mean, it's hard to look past, some things, but like Mac said, they're going to eat innings. So I think these signings, it's important to look at what could be in our future when it comes to these signings, because who knows? I mean, the Cardinals could sit on their feet or sit on their hands and do absolutely nothing, or just keep adding on. So these guys are very low risk options. I mean, it could bring you a high reward. Who knows? We've seen the Cardinals work wonders before with guys, like who was it? J.A. Happ.
Lester.
John Lester.
You could throw Lester in there.
Lester. There's been guys in the past. We know how that goes. So who knows? I think it's just really telling what they do after this. That's what's going to be more important.
Yeah, it really intrigues me, the next step, because if you can look at it in a multitude of ways, but the 2 guys that they signed and the financial impact and less of the financial impact that it actually has on the organization, I think it sets them up to do something big if the opportunity presents itself. I don't know if you dive all of that resources. So like if your first signing is 24 million to Sonny Gray, I think you still need to find someone on that back end, and then you don't know what you're willing to do for the top end. At least on this avenue that they've taken, they do have more financial prowess. They can flex a little bit more muscle. And there's a ton of opportunities out there. There's also the innings that were covered, and maybe you don't have to get a workhorse for that number 1. Maybe you can get a 5 and dive 2-time Cy Young winner. I'm just saying, it really just opens up the landscape of what you can do, and you really have no limitations on yourself that you did have coming into the off season.
Let me ask you a quick question. So this is for both of you, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about Lynn and Gibson. But would you guys have rather seen? Obviously, this is going back a little bit, but the 2 signings, Lynn, Gibson, for what was it, 21 mil, and then player options club options next year? Is that right?
Yeah.
Total. Okay. Would you rather have seen that or Sonny Gray on a $24 million?
It's in a vacuum. I probably take Sonny Gray.
Okay.
But if Lynn and Gibson left the money on the table for us to go the extra mile for example, Yamamoto, then I'd take Gibson and Lynn and Yamamoto over Sonny Gray, no Yamamoto, any day of the week.
Right.
So I guess it really depends on what's going to happen here in the next couple weeks. But what I do think that the Cardinals have done is they've set themselves up for, choose my words wisely. If you strike out, you are going to have a terrible offseason. Like you've done committed your innings and your dollars to Gibson and Lynn,
Right.
in the hopes that you can get one of your big guys. If you cannot, I don't know if there's another number one that you can sign that can make up the difference of what you just did. And we can touch on that later about what the Cardinals may and may not do when it comes to one more pitcher or two more pitchers. But with Lipson and Ginn, oh my.
Butchered that one a little bit. Who are those two guys?
Oh shit. With Gibson and Lynn, I think you can't just get a B tier top of the rotation guy.
Yeah.
I don't know what Mac thinks about that, but I think it would make that tougher.
Right.
Well, going back to, I was just thinking about your question a moment ago. Would I rather have had Lynn and Gibson or Sonny Gray? Actually, I'll choose the latter. I'll take Lynn and Gibson. They're going to give you a lot of innings. The money is probably close, but if you go the direction of Sonny Gray, you're essentially doing the same thing. You're paying a pitcher, age 30 or more, big money to play. I'm just not the biggest proponent of just continuously signing guys over 30 and putting them into rotation. The Cardinals probably have one of the oldest rotations in all of baseball right now. And that's even excluding Adam Wainwright being a part of it. This is the home run shot they need for the young guy that's on the market, and they have an opportunity to do so.
And we're gonna probably get into some deep Yamamoto talks here in a minute, but before we get there, we really haven't as a group talked about the Daniel Descalso bench coach acquisition here. I don't know if there's a lot to really dig into, but
I'm cool with it.
When I look at it from just a perspective of just what it is and what it looks like, I'm more intrigued to have Descalso in that position than I was McEwing. I think there needed to be a change there. This McEwing, he was brought in when Holiday stepped aside. I don't know if he was exactly what the Cardinals wanted.
I think it was a rush decision.
It was a rush decision. It was a hodgepodge coaching staff. And, I think that this might give a little bit of a fresh voice, a fresh perspective, and maybe a different, better personality sitting next to Marmol. It does sound like that bench coach position was originally held off and reserved for Yachty. And I think the goal was if Yachty wanted to commit the time, he was going to have it. It sounds like there's just stuff going on with Yachty where the Cardinals don't feel he's ready to commit 100%, 162, live a life on the road, and all that jazz. And I think with the Holiday situation last year, they don't want to get into somebody doing something and then changing their mind, and that doesn't look good for anybody. So,
my favorite part about the Descalso signing was the report that came out, and he said, "I'm not going to be a yes man. We're going to have some good baseball conversations." So
yeah, I love that too.
that's a good attitude to bring in this clubhouse. It seems like even if it hasn't been a yes man mentality, we kind of get that vibe at times looking at from the outside. So I think that can shake things up a bit.
To be honest with you, Rishi, I'm sorry, live.
Go ahead.
I want to just
Go ahead.
kind of interject right here. I think this is kind of an indication of where the team and the direction is slightly changing. I think that some of the moves that have been made this offseason thus far, from my eyes, have been made in order to keep the front office in check. in a sense. When you bring in a guy like Daniel Lascalso, who makes the comments like you made, and I think that was a great point that you brought up, he stated that he's not going to be a yes man. And then you went out and you got the rusty nail Lance Lynn, and we all know, like anybody that watched Cardinal baseball with Lance Lynn when he before he departed, um, he was the guy that just pushed back. He's blunt, he's fucking honest, and I think the Cardinals need more of that. To be honest, I think that they've gotten so content with just following the leader. You know, they make a decision, they generally commit to it. There's not a lot of blowback, and I think that they really started reevaluating a lot of different things, and maybe they have that desire to get some of these guys with a little bit of pushback when needed, and keep themselves in check.
And you look at what they did with Kisner. Dude's a very popular guy in the clubhouse. We can't overlook that fact. I know that only goes so far, but when you are very popular in the clubhouse, um, that can help you stick around. And you got Wainwright leaving. You bring in someone like Descalso, and you bring in someone like Lynn, as you mentioned, and his personality. I think there's some clues, how the Cardinals felt about that clubhouse. And then, after that signing, John Mozeliak even hinted that he felt like the clubhouse needed a different perspective and a different vibe to it. Even going as kind of opening the curtain to the fans as a response to a media question when he said, I mean, you guys know it. You guys were in the clubhouse last year. You saw some things. Well, what things did they see? As fans, we were told that these guys are not down. They're ready to go. They're to compete. This isn't who they are. Every single one of them guys in that clubhouse come here to compete every day, and we're going to get back into it, and that's what we're going to do. Um, that's the message that we got until the last moment that they walked off that field. But then you have the comment made by Mo to the media, essentially saying, "You guys saw it. You guys knew what was going on." Well, then obviously the clubhouse was not as good as it was reported, and I think we all knew that. I don't think you can have the type of season the Cardinals had without the clubhouse having a lot of issues. So I do like the Lance Lynn signing from that perspective. I think Gibson brings a lot of just a veteran leadership that might be walking out of the door, not tenure as far as like Wainwright being part of the Cardinal culture, but just veteran leadership as far as like a veteran in Major League Baseball. I think that can be really important going down the stretch. And I put this out, and I don't think a lot of people talked about it, but you're also bringing in two veterans that are sure of themselves. They know who they are, and I don't think they're going to be relying on Wilson Contreras calling their game too much. Now, that's not to expect Wilson Contreras taking the next strides. I think there's been a lot of people hard on Wilson Contreras. This show has not been one of them. So, and we will not start that tonight. But I think it's telling the fact that you bring in two guys that Lance Lynn knows who he is, Gibson knows who he is, and I don't think they're going to 100% rely on get our Wilson Contreras calling their game. If they disagree with Wilson Contreras, these two, you don't tell me you don't think Lance Lynn's going to be scared to shake Wilson Contreras off and go, no, no. Why are you calling for my off speed right now? I'm throwing fastball. You best get that to your head. I'm going fast. So I think that is a little piece of the puzzle that not a lot of people have talked about, but I think it's a big thing.
Let me ask you this, though, Live. I'm talking about Wilson Contreras. So we don't really know what's true when it comes to what was happening with the rotation last year and Wilson, but are you comfortable with him taking on almost an entirely new rotation this year?
Actually, I think it's beneficial. I think I think especially when you have someone like Gibson and Lynn coming in. Like I said, I think those signings have a lot of depth to them, other than the fact that what everyone's talking about on the surface level. If you want to just look at it from that scope, through that lens, you can have some issues with what the Cardinals did. But if you break it down and you look at a lot of the issues that they had last year, and you look at some of the quarries that you had about Wilson Contreras and the 2022 three pitching staff, I'm getting lost in my years here. Uh, I think having that veteran leadership will be good. You got Michaelis and who knows what's going to happen with Matz. I feel really good about those vets coming in and then Michaelis taking the next step with Wilson. And then Yamamoto would be different if the Cardinals were able to acquire him, or really any frontline ace. We'd have to see that relationship flourish. But yeah, dude, I think like Wilson can like Lance Lynn, I think is a perfect combo with Wilson. I think he's going to work well with him. Um, what I think it comes down to with Wilson Contreras, and why I think it's better is you're having pitchers that grew up not grew up, but Flaherty knows nothing other than Yachty, and Kiz. You have Jordan Montgomery, who came over from the Yankees, and Yachty credited Yachty to essentially reviving his career. Um, Jordan Montgomery isn't getting paid like this without Yachty and Rolina, and he'll be the first one to tell you. He helped change Jordan Montgomery's game. Same thing with Adam Wainwright. I mean, we don't even have to get into Adam Wainwright and Yachty's history, and Wainwright's a different subject because of injury. I think having a completely new pitching staff of guys that aren't 100% just reliant on Yachty and what he did for them, I think could actually be beneficial.
Interesting. Mac, what is your thoughts on that?
I really don't have much to add to it, to be honest, man. I think Live pretty much nailed everything. And honestly, I got caught up reading about the Angels signing they just made.
Oh, do we got breaking news?
I don't know if it's like, I wouldn't really say breaking. I mean, it's Adam Cleric just got signed to a 1-year deal worth $900,000 to the Angels.
Gotcha.
Yeah, nothing like super, super crazy, but I got the notification.
It does sound like it might be a busy week around the industry. I think that we are going to see some signings happen. We did just see
Kenta Maeda
signed going to the Detroit Tigers today. I think we're going to see some more action this week. I have some tidbits on that. I hinted at it in the live cave. I think Shane Bieber, I think his market's going to get cooking here. So it was widely speculated that his market may not move until during or after the winter meetings, mostly on Cleveland's part, but on the fact that other teams that would be interested in Bieber might be looking on the free agent market before giving away assets on the trade market, just with the surplus of pitching on the open market. But it seems like there's a few teams that have been reliant on the trade market, that have been exploring the trade market more heavily than, like, for example, the Cardinals have early on. And I think they're pushing the needle and making Cleveland kind of not hurry, but really think about their time frame of trading him. And I think that kind of ball rolling will get other teams at least calling Cleveland and kicking the tires on a Shane Bieber. And I think there's a good chance that if not before the winter meetings, he will be dealt at the winter meetings. And I say that this as importance because the Cardinals are interested in Bieber to the point where they did tell Cleveland that what we'd like to have a conversation when they had a brief conversation at the GM meetings. The Cardinals, it's not like the Cardinals, they've confirmed it. I confirmed it that the trade talks weren't like the number one goal entering the off season. But they did tell teams with starting pitchers that are known to be on the market that they are interested, and when the time comes, when they're ready to have conversations, they want to be a part of those conversations. If Cleveland is ready to start having those conversations, I expect the Cardinals to get involved to at least a certain level, and how deep that goes, that's unclear at the moment. Why is this important? Well, I mean, if they do get involved in Bieber, I think it could be telling to the point where one pitcher, maybe not the goal, maybe two more pitchers would be the goal, unlike what some are speculating that they want to go out and get one more pitcher. And if the goal is only one more pitcher and they're going to settle on Shane Bieber, one, I think we can all agree that this would be a very disappointing offseason, and it would maybe give a clue of how they feel about their chances of signing one Yamamoto. I think the first part of that comment would be more correct, and they would be looking for an additional starting pitcher instead of just one more. So I think this Shane Bieber market's going to be really, really important to pay attention to here over the next week heading into the winter meetings. And again, if he's not dealt, I think you're going to see a lot of traction on that trade front, especially from Cleveland. And I would not be surprised to see him move at the winter meetings. Um, as far as what the Cardinals could offer, I don't know the entire package, but I know they like our outfielders. I know they like Tyler O'Neill, and I know they like Dylan Carlson. So that's Dylan Carlson might be a little bit of a steeper payment for Shane Bieber, but with the price of pitching, who knows? I mean, they're connecting Dylan Carlson's name in for Tyler Glass now in a package. So 1 year pitching, I know that's two different pitchers, but yeah, just 1 year control of pitching is still costly. Are you guys still low on Shane Bieber?
I've always been pretty high on Shane Bieber, but I know people are quick to dive into the advanced analytics and all that jazz.
I was going to ask you, Mac, but I know you're like you only care about one guy right now.
But I mean, there's nothing wrong with acquiring Shane Bieber, but you have to do more. Like, he's not a guy that I would just bank on being the ace of your rotation. Could he be that guy? Sure. Is it a guaranteed lock? No.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the main guy.
Well, can I ask you a question
Yeah,
before we talk about Yamamoto?
yeah.
I don't want to hear Mac glaze over Yamamoto right now, but no, I'm just kidding. But I guess one thing a lot of people criticized last year with this team is Ali and his ability to coach the team. I think I'm more on the side of I don't entirely put everything on Ali as much as some people will, but if let's just hypothetically say the Cardinals have another year they don't win the Central, they don't sneak into the playoffs, are you going to point the finger at Ali or the front office? I guess that is a hard question to ask because it would fully depend on what they do in this offseason, but just from that perspective, how would you feel?
Well, I mean, again, like you kind of hinted, it would be hard to answer the question because if they don't go out and get at least a frontline starting pitcher, and in my opinion, a solid number two, I would blame the front office. I mean, right now I'm blaming the front office by bringing in Lennon Gibson. I understand why they did it and their reasoning. I, I don't agree with it. And the reason why I don't agree with it is because, I think you need a really solid 1 and 2, and you can backload that 3, 4, 5, and you can go out and you can acquire a 4 or a 5 on the market around deadline time a lot easier than you can go out and get a number one. So I would have rather just focused on that 1, 2 and see what you had. And then if you needed to add a serviceable 3, 4, 5 around deadline time, do it then. So this whole backfilling and building the rotation from the back forward, in theory, you can understand it and you can recognize it and say, okay, I see the vision to the extent, but like I said, I don't agree with it. So right now, I mean, my blame is on the front office until they sign 2 more pitchers. And one of those pitchers need to be at least a really good number one. In my opinion, it needs to be Yamamoto, and they need to make that happen. And then they need to trade for a number two, whether that be Shane Bieber or a Logan Gilbert or I would prefer somebody with years, though you might have to get somebody here on a 1 year deal and see if you can extend them. I also look at someone like Woodruff. I think the Cardinals ought to make a call on that. If you're going to have Lennon Gibson to a 1 year deal, depending on who you maybe get for that number two, if you get a number two, and you have Yamamoto, you're going to be right back in this position next year looking for starting pitching unless couple of your young guys really step it up. And again, do we want to keep relying on that? The Cardinals aren't relying on it this year. Are they going to rely on it next year? It sounds like fool's gold to me. So this Woodruff signing, I initially was like, no, we need to focus on this year and get our guys. But with the moves that they have already made has changed my opinion. The team has, simply because we're going to need pitching for 25. I would really think about signing Woodruff and being in the NL Central. You're obviously, you can call it a division rivalry if you want. It has its ups and downs. But I think Woodruff would really like staying in the NL Central and sticking it to the Brewers. I would. I think there's an opportunity there to at least make a call. If they did some of those things, if they went out and they got Yamamoto and we ran the rotation how it is, we signed Woodruff to be prepared for next year, and maybe added a piece at the deadline when we needed it, and the Cardinals still failed to be productive, then I might blame Oliver Marmol. But if the Cardinals haven't learned their lesson, which I don't know if it looks like they have, and they don't give Oliver Marmol the pitching staff to be a true contender in the National League, then I don't know if I can really blame them too much. However, when you finish in last place and you have as bad season as he had, if he duplicates that, all the blame has to be on him, because you can't be a last place team, or a bottom team back to back years and tell me the manager's doing a good job.
So, from a simple, I guess, yes or no, would you say if we have the kind of year we did last year, would you say Ollie's position as head coach of the Cardinals, would you say he's on the hot seat?
If we repeat what we did last year, I think everybody is on the hot seat, bro.
Yeah.
Mozeliak's already kind of towards the end of his tenure. I think he would step down. I think Michael Gersh his job would be in jeopardy. I think the only safe one would be Randy Flores. I think the entire front office is on notice right now, which is why I'm surprised by the fact that they've made the couple signings that they have. I think maybe John Mozeliak knows that he's not going to get fired. His departure will be courteous and respectful. Um, as far as everybody else goes, including the pitching coach, the hitting coach, Ward and Blake, and Ollie, I mean, everybody would be on the hot seat if things start going bad the way it went last year. If the Cardinals have the start that they had last year, this coaching staff, they're not making it till June, I promise you.
Yeah, I agree. Mac, do you have anything to add?
No, not really, man. I think you guys both covered it really well. I mean, it's kind of how I feel too, man. Like, it's really early to make a decision because you haven't even really seen how the off season's completely played out. So you really don't know what Ollie's going to have going into the year. But yeah, I mean, like, right now it doesn't appear that the signings that they have made a lot of sense so far. I think that's pretty apparent.
Give us some hope, Mac. Give us some hope. You're the light. You're the shining light in this Cardinals fan base on Twitter.
I mean, I'm confident that we're going to do things still. I mean, I've not changed my stance on that at all.
Okay.
So how do you feel about Yamamoto's timeline?
It's fine.
Does it
It's
worry
whatever.
you, or you're cool with it? It's part of the process, or
It's part of the process, bro. I mean, I think the thing that's going to bode really well for St. Louis is that his agent's going to do most of the talking. So the Cardinals have that sound relationship with him already. I have more than enough confidence that the Zoom calls are going to be chilling with the Cardinals. I think they'll be in the ballpark and tell him what he wants to hear. And I fully look forward to him being a finalist and coming to visit St. Louis during the end of the winter meetings.
do you think that? So I believe he's back in Japan.
Right.
Um,
I'd seen it on his Instagram.
yeah. Do you find it odd that he wouldn't want to be here for the winter meetings?
Nah,
Why not?
doesn't bother me. No. It doesn't bother me. I mean, it's just part of the process. I mean,
Well, I guess
however he
if
really
you
chooses
were,
to do it.
I know everybody's different, but if you were a free agent, would you want to be a part of the process?
Yes, I would.
And I feel like I would too. And I don't know if it's because it's the amount of teams that shown interest, and he wants Wolf's help to narrow it down to make a decision easier and not be overwhelmed by the process. Or like if he already has an idea of maybe a couple teams he's really interested in and he just doesn't want to waste his time.
I think that second, but I think probably the latter.
Because like if you were
I think
really,
he's already got probably a good idea of where he wants to go.
I do too. I think he has maybe I don't know, maybe 3 teams that really have his interest, and I think he wants to make sure that they express that interest and reciprocate it, and I think that they want to make sure that they're financially ready to go there, and if everybody's on board, then I think that's when he comes and meets them and narrows it down from maybe 3-4 to 1. But like if with the amount of teams showing interest and to want to narrow it down over Zoom and phone call, you have to like almost assume or wonder that this dude kind of already has an idea of the couple of teams that he really is interested in, and he just wants to make sure they show the interest back, and then they're going to get going. Because if he was interested in 12, 13 teams,
He'd be visiting all of them.
he'd be visiting all, and he wouldn't go home. He would go to the winter meetings because that would be the most accessible and logical place to start meeting with teams. If you had to knock out that many
Right.
teams, you would go to the winter meetings with your agent, and you would get your own suite, and you would invite teams in one by one.
Yeah, I
But
think it's very telling.
yeah, I think it's very telling too. I think it's being overlooked. Because you can't have that much interest and then all of a sudden try to dive it down. I
don't
really
think
do.
it's being overlooked. I don't think it's being talked about at all.
No,
Nobody's talking about it.
I don't think they are either. And so, I mean, I really do think it's that bodes well for the teams that may really be in it, because I really do think he already has a preference of a couple teams, and the Zoom and all the calls are just basically
Formality.
once confirmation that they're interested too, and then they're going to get the ball rolling.
Yep, I agree.
Because yeah, dude, like if you have 15 teams. You're not, or 12 or whatever it is, you're not narrowing it down to 10 and then flying back to the U.S. and trying to knock out 10 teams and then make a decision all before, right after Christmas. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of decisions. You would want to go to the winter meetings and meet with him. And the fact that he's not going and he's not worried about that, dude, half these teams making calls on Yamamoto right now have no shot in hell and they don't even know it yet.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if you started hearing numbers kind of leak out towards the end of the week about what the Cardinals are truly going to be in for.
I wouldn't either. I also expect the teams that are really interested in Yamamoto to continue to have dialogue with Joe Wolf throughout this week before the winter meetings. Like I wouldn't be surprised if you start finding out some of the teams that he may be visiting before winter meetings start.
Oh, I'm right there with you, bro. I think that he'll have the 3 finalists or 4 finalists, whatever is going to happen. I think you'll know that by the end of the winter meetings. You might actually find that out at the beginning of the winter meetings, and it would add more suspense.
I do too, and I think it's because you gotta. I think a lot of the teams that are going to be interested in him are going to have to know before the winter meetings.
Yep, I agree.
That's some common sense there. I mean, you can try to create leverage, but if you don't tell a team that they're a finalist and they go out and make a move and leave you on the table, then you're hurting your own market. Or not hurting your market financially, but you're hurting yourself and eliminating a team that you had in mind or had in your finalist. You're taking that away from yourself. So I think a lot of the teams that will be quote unquote finalists, I think they're going to have Zoom meetings probably earlier on in the week. And I think you're going to hear about some of the stuff, like you said, as we get through the week heading into the winter meetings.
It'll probably start tomorrow, dog.
Winter meetings, it might be down to 3 teams going into the winter meetings, and you never know what could happen at that point. But I think Joe Wolf might be done by the winter meetings with Yamamoto as far as figuring out where his client's going to go, not sign but visit.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm right there with you. Yeah, I think the conversations will start being had tomorrow. I mean, he's back in Japan. He had like a little dinner and shit like that earlier. It won't surprise me if you start hearing things tomorrow, because the winter meetings are only 2 weeks away. Um, it makes sense for the ball to start getting rolling now.
Today is the 26th. Winter meetings start on the 2nd. So we are.
I thought they started on the 4th, dog.
Maybe it is the 4th. So we
I think it
are.
starts in 1 week.
Yeah, we're a week away. I mean, this week is pivotal.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I really do. I think by the time we get into next weekend, we may know who the finalists are, just based on what you're looking at, and kind of using common sense. It's going to be really hard to narrow 13 teams down over phone calls. I mean, the client has to have an idea of a few teams that he wants, and it's really about confirming everything's lining up so he can schedule the meetings with them. Like you might have 10 teams. We'll use the Tigers and the Diamondbacks as an example because they were rumored to be interested in them. They might not have a shot in hell, and they're not going to schedule a meeting with them. And the Zoom call meeting isn't really about figuring out what they're really about. But they also can't tell the team that he wants to, because there has to be some sort of leverage. You have to play the game a little bit.
Yep, I'm looking forward to a live bomb tomorrow.
Dude, we'll see. I think tomorrow might be a slower day. I don't know what it is about Mondays lately, but rumors and updates have been, for me, Mondays have been a pretty slow day, and I usually have slow days on Mondays work wise, so it's usually the time where I wish I could get a lot of information, but it's been dry. But we are entering in a pivotal week for sure, so things could be vastly different. This is like the calm before the storm, and the clouds can erupt and thunder can strike at any moment. This is a very important week. And then winter meetings I think winter meetings is going to be pretty exciting. I think Ohtani signs this week. I think we're going to get Ohtani bombs this week, not from me, but Jeff Passan going to maybe drop a Passan bomb, and let us know where Ohtani's going. I just
I
think
want a
that.
nuke bomb.
You want to what?
I want a nuke bomb, dude.
I do too.
That's what I want.
I want Newt to be over in Japan right now and just like share an Instagram post of him and Yamamoto just like chilling.
Drawing pictures of Cardinals.
And like probably a birdie.
Live, who would you envision is their first pivot? If Yamamoto signs, who's John Mozeliak calling first?
I don't know if there's like a first. But I think he would probably call Scott Boras because he could knock out two there with Snell and Montgomery if both are on the market. And figure out where Gray is. Like if Gray's still available and they know they get told they're not in the finalists for Yamamoto, I think they'll probably sign Gray very quick if he's still available. But I think Snell is in play too. Like I have like the information that Snell's higher on their list than you'd expect. But if I also have like this gut feeling if they miss out on Yamamoto, we're going to be disappointed with who they pivot to. Like I just have this underlying feeling that if they miss out on Yamamoto, they're going to go a lot lower than we want. I just don't know why I feel that way, but I feel that way. I don't know if they're going to make that big trade everybody wants. They might go out and get Glasnow, or they might trade for a Shane Bieber. They might call for a Dylan Cease or a Logan Gilbert. But I think a Logan Gilbert price has to come down significantly, and I'm not sure they're going to pay the Dylan Cease price. So, I could probably, pivot, I would say if he's available, Sonny Gray, and if he's available, Tyler Glasnow. I think that's where they pivot. And I think everyone's going to be very disappointed in that. Some people might like it. I won't.
Yeah, That was my initial prediction, that they go straight to Sonny Gray, and he falls quick.
Yes, Sonny Gray or Tyler Glasnow, I think, would be my peg. And that's not like information. Like, the information would tell you that they would really pursue Montgomery and Snell harder than you would think. But just my initial feeling is, if they miss out on Yamamoto, I think they reevaluate, and I think they go down a tier.
Mac, you're awful quiet today, man.
He's tired.
I'm tired of just listening.
Well, I don't know if there's much to cover else anyways. I think we conjured up a really, like, conceivable understanding of what's going on with Yamamoto. And maybe connected some dots of why the timeline is the way it is, and why, from an 80-foot view, it doesn't seem logical, but when you break it down, now maybe we're seeing why things are happening the way they are.
I think it's been pretty apparent too, like how much it's quieted down.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. I think there's just a lot of kind of things that are moving behind the scenes right now, and I know that we can get impatient as fans if there's reasons why things are happening the way they are.
You get through the
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say I fully expect, John Mozeliak to be calling Wolf every day just to try to gauge more and more and more.
Yeah, I mean, you're through the holidays now. Monday starts the beginning of the uphill battle, and I think we're going to get into a lot more exciting news, and it's going to start getting smoky. For all you guys tuning in, whether it's via YouTube, this will be our first video uploaded to YouTube. It will also still be on Spotify, and also Anchor, our podcasters, whatever they call it now. So all the normal avenues, plus now YouTube. If you listen to this on YouTube, please subscribe. We're getting our account verified, and pretty soon we will be able to record live and do live shows, and we're going to try to do a winter meeting special here next week when everything kind of gets going.
Congratulations. You've actually finished listening to this bullshit.